Good evening, everyone. Um, this is a public informational meeting on docket number 2025-0156, instituting a proceeding to review Hawaiian Electric's wildfire mitigation plan. My name is Leo Sachin. I'm the chair of the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission, um, and I'm joined tonight by Commissioner Naomi Kauai and Commissioner Colin Yost, as well as the consumer advocate is present here in our hearing room. This is the first of two public meetings regarding PUC docket number 2025-0156 on Hawaiian Electric's wildfire mitigation plan. I will note that this was not a required meeting. It's not your typical docket, if you will. But we thought it would be a good opportunity to have these hearings over the next 2 days to kind of gather any information or input that the community may have, or anyone else for that matter, including governmental agencies and the like, that they could come at this time and listen to the presentation from Hawaiian Electric, but also if they have any initial comments or input that may want everyone to consider, or just basically their manao on what Hawaiian Electric has prepared thus far. So tonight's meeting, we will welcome comments from Oahu and statewide stakeholders. Tomorrow is actually for Maui County and Hawaii Island stakeholders, but if you are from those islands tonight and you wish to provide your comments, we would welcome them as well. KIUC also has filed a wildfire mitigation plan, and we will address that in a separate proceeding, just like this one. But at the same time, especially for our statewide governmental agencies, that if you're here and you want to comment and you took a look at KIUC's wildfire mitigation plan as well, and you want to make comments, feel free to do so. So I save you the burden of attending two meetings, and that basically goes for the public as well. I mean, if you had that chance, just make sure maybe when you make those comments that kind of separate them out, so we know, because the KIUC's WMP is in a separate docket than one from Hawaiian Electric. So just want to keep it clean, but we want to have it open enough that the public can provide comments as they wish on either HECO's wildfire mitigation plan or KIUC's plan. Yeah, so the notice for that public meeting, public informational meeting is forthcoming. The notice and agenda for this public information meeting was published in the Honolulu Star Advertiser on April 13th and on April 20th. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed on the PUC's YouTube channel. Recording will be later be available on the same. And the link to the PUC's YouTube channel can be found on the PUC's website at https://puc.hawaii.gov. Just a reminder, if anyone who wishes to present or make comments tonight, please sign in at the table as you entered the room, or if you're on WebEx, just kind of include it in the chat function there that you wish to provide comments, and then we will get to you as we call up everyone. Tonight's meeting will begin with Hawaiian Electric's presentation of an overview of their wildfire mitigation plan. Topics discussed will include understanding wildfire risk, key mitigation activities to reduce the probability of ignitions, community engagement and emergency preparedness and response, strengthening stakeholder and community partnerships, and other subject areas as may be relevant and reasonable under the circumstances. On September 13th, 2024, the Commission directed Hawaiian Electric to develop a wildfire mitigation plan detailing their ongoing efforts and future mitigation plans to address wildfires as they relate to the provision of utility service, capital expenditures, operation, and/or finances. Hawaiian Electric filed its wildfire mitigation plan on January 10th, 2025, in docket number 2025-0156. Copies of the plan are publicly available on the Commission's electronic database, CDMS e-services, and there is a website there. If you go to the main website, there is a link to our CDMS system, and just search for the docket number 2025-0156. And the plan is supplemented by Hawaiian Electric's filings in response to the Commission's information requests and orders in the docket. In reviewing Hawaiian Electric's wildfire mitigation plan, the Commission will evaluate whether it complies with the guidelines established by the Commission in Order Number 41531 and assess if it can reasonably be expected to reduce wildfire risks. Key evaluation criteria include technical feasibility and effectiveness, resource use efficiency, demonstrated continued progress, forward-looking improvements, clearly defined performance metrics, as well as additional factors to promote the public interest. This evaluation framework will guide the Commission decision-making process and ensure transparency and clarity for how the WMP is assessed. So the scope of today's public meeting is really for the Commission to hear any community feedback on Hawaiian Electric's wildfire mitigation plan. The Commission is not here to provide formal responses to questions about the plan. However, attendees are welcome to ask questions of both Hawaiian Electric and the consumer advocate who are here in person after the meeting, and we'll set it up such that people online may also have an opportunity to ask Hawaiian Electric and or the consumer advocate any questions that they may have. In addition, as described below, members of the public may file written comments in the docket. So some ground rules for tonight's meeting. Hawaiian Electric will be given 30 minutes to provide an overview of its wildfire mitigation plan, and the consumer advocate will be given 10 minutes to explain its role in the process and present any comments. All other commenters will give you approximately 3 minutes to speak. We'll probably adjust that here and there before, as we see how many people are interested. If we have a lot of people, we might have to change the time limit, but for now, it'd be 3 minutes to speak. But before we start, just a few guidelines. Those who are going to make comments, you may not give all or any portion of your allotted time to another speaker. And if you wish to comment in person, again, make sure you register at the sign-in table. You can also submit your comments in writing at any time. And you just need to reference the docket number, again, 2025-0156. And you can submit them online at the PUC's website or mail them to our offices in Honolulu at 465 South King Street, room 103, Honolulu, Hawaii 96813. If you do provide comments verbally this evening, at the beginning of your allotted time, please state your name, your island of residence, and whether or not you are commenting on behalf of an organization or as an individual. So we will commence with the public meeting. And first off, I'll call up, Hoten, is it you that's going to present? Oh, Mark Asano. So Mark, if you want to come up from Hawaiian Electric.
All right. Good evening. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners for allowing us this opportunity to share our wildfire safety strategy. My name is Mark Asano from Hawaiian Electric, and I'll be covering the topics that Chair noted at the beginning. Oh, next slide. Yeah, next slide. Okay. Throughout this presentation, I'll be covering wildfire risk as well as key mitigation activities that the companies plan to undertake as part of its 2025 through 2027 strategy. Talk about community engagement and emergency preparedness, as well as stakeholder and community partnerships. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, as an introduction, to our wildfire safety strategy, the primary objective is to minimize ignition risks from our infrastructure. So in doing so, to do that, we identified elevated risk areas throughout each of the islands that we serve. So that includes Oahu, Lanai, Molokai, Maui, and Hawaii Island. I'll cover mostly Oahu tonight, but to the extent that there are questions on neighbor islands, I can comments on neighbor islands, I can speak to that as well. Once we've identified the risk areas, looking at the drivers of risk and ways to mitigate those risks, as well as engaging with community members, continuously improving our strategies, and also looking at the costs and schedules to implement our risk reduction measures. Next slide. So first, the approach that we took to this strategy is to really focus on ignitions and reducing the risk of ignitions on our electric system. But we do view wildfire as a societal and economic impact to society as a whole. There are other components of reducing the threat of wildfires, including fuels management, fire suppression, and as well as urban planning. So there are many entities that we seek to work with in combating wildfire threats. Those include fire suppression capabilities, fuels management. So as land use has changed over the years from agricultural now to sort of invasive grasses, as well as urban planning, which speaks to some of ingress egress issues, as well as building codes and urban vegetation planning. Next slide. Okay, so understanding wildfire risk. 99% of ignitions or wildfires in Hawaii are human caused. So part of that is taking this collective approach that I spoke to on the previous slide, but really looking at how electrical infrastructure and ways to reduce the risk of ignitions. Okay, next slide. So now I'll go into the heart of our strategy, which is the approach we took is looking at 4 pillars to our wildfire safety. Next slide. So the 4 pillars include grid hardening, which I'll discuss each of these in more detail in the coming slides. But grid hardening, situational awareness, operational practices, as well as stakeholder and community partnerships. Okay, first is hardening the grid. So when we talk about hardening the grid, it relates to upgrading our infrastructure. So that could include putting in stronger poles, undergrounding our overhead lines, installing covered conductor, but then also keeping the reliability impacts in mind and finding ways to improve reliability while also strengthening our infrastructure. So for this first example, these are some pictures of what we call covered conductor. So you may see on the sidewalks or the side of roads where our poles and wires are. Typically, those wires are not covered. So they are what we call in the industry bare conductor. So one way to reduce the risk of ignition is to use a different type of wire that has a covering over it. We call that covered conductor. And what that essentially does is reduces the probability that you could have an ignition if any of the components on the wires or the poles fail. So these are some pictures here of what that installation can look like when you use covered conductor. So on the topic of undergrounding, we have done a lot of community outreach over the past few years, and we do hear the feedback about the desire for more undergrounding. Currently, about half of our total distribution lines, so those are the lines that you typically see on the side of the roads in your neighborhoods, are in fact already underground. There are cost considerations with undergrounding. So as part of our strategy is to undertake a more comprehensive study to determine where that balance of strategic undergrounding can take place. So there will be considerations for example, our highest risk areas, areas where there may be evacuation routes. So that'll help us get better insight into the actual cost of some of these projects. There are a number of challenges to doing undergrounding in Hawaii. Some of it is construction related. There are areas with blue rock, which is particularly difficult to trench. There are also environmental and also cultural issues that we're sensitive to that can also add to the total timeline. So we will be undertaking a study to look at undergrounding specifically, but we do view it as a longer term solution. We are looking, as I'll go over, at things that can be implemented more quickly to reduce risk more immediately. Part of the strategy also includes replacing some of the wood poles. So we will look at some critical areas where we can potentially put in stronger poles of different materials along with covered conductor. So that'll help strengthen and make more resilient certain critical lines in high risk areas. Okay. Next slide. Oh, next slide. Okay, the second pillar that I mentioned was expanding our situational awareness. So we last year we did start a comprehensive deployment of weather stations and cameras in high risk areas. So we plan to continue to do that. And I'll speak to some of the benefits of the weather stations and cameras. We're also looking at things like a watch office, which is essentially our capability, meteorological capability, specifically for hazardous fire weather, as well as some sophisticated tools on risk modeling to help with our situational awareness. Next slide. So first I want to show this map of Oahu. As part of our strategy, we did take a look at each island that we serve and make an assessment relative to our grid infrastructure and the surrounding risks. So we have identified high, medium, and low risk areas. You can see the high risk in red and the medium risk areas in yellow. So we are focusing a lot of our mitigations on the high and medium risk areas and some of the much more critical mitigations, particularly in the high risk areas. Okay, the first is, so these are pictures of our weather stations. So the way we've been deploying weather stations are within where our infrastructure lies within the high risk areas. and we plan to continue to expand our weather station network. So previously to 2023, there weren't actually that many weather stations around each island that the National Weather Service utilized. By us deploying these weather stations, it gives us better granularity or locational information of the weather in specific areas around the island, especially due to a lot of the microclimates in Hawaii. This really helps us with some of our decision making and give us real-time feedback on, for example, winds, and eventually we'd like to incorporate things like fuel moisture as well. Okay, slide. Another component of our strategy is deploying video cameras. So these cameras are typically mounted in either on our infrastructure, on our poles, and they're really meant to look at the landscape. And we do have, they're available online at the link below there, alertwest.live. So these cameras help to detect fires that get ignited. So it's a tool that we've implemented to give us better situational awareness, but it's also something that each of the county fire departments are actively using, and it helps for them to be able to respond quicker to fires. At times, the cameras will notify them of a fire even before they receive a 911 call. So it does help them in their response time as well as tactically in fighting fires. Okay, the next pillar that I mentioned was operational practices. So we have changed some of the ways that we operate. These can have adverse impacts on reliability, but we have weighed sort of the risk reduction against that reliability, and to really help reduce some of the wildfire risk. But we are finding ways as part of this strategy to improve the reliability. Okay, on the next slide. So one operational practice that has changed is something called fast trip and block reclose. So fast trip is whenever a disturbance is detected on a grid, the power will automatically shut off to reduce the amount of energy and the probability of an ignition from that disturbance. So that helps reduce risk quite a bit. But the downside of that is that customers may experience more frequent or longer duration outages. Okay, next slide. And so part of that is when some of those causes of outages are things like vegetation. So if there are trees near lines and it's a windy day, a branch could blow into a line or touch a line, and that would cause an outage. So those are some of the risks of ignition, and so those are the things that we're trying to address. We are increasing some of our vegetation management activities, especially in high-risk areas. Another operational practice is more frequent inspections in high-risk areas. So this involves either an inspection on the ground of our lines, or you may see our operators using drones to inspect our lines in various neighborhoods or around where we have lines in high-risk areas. So what the drones are doing are they're taking pictures of our infrastructure, and we take a closer inspection. And if we find any conditions on those lines, we will repair those to kind of reduce the risk of failure happening, especially during high winds. Okay, one other operational practice relates to public safety power shutoff. Sometimes that's referred to as PSPS. So in last year in July 1, we launched this program, and we've done a lot of community outreach, which I'll talk about later, to prepare customers and residents for potential outages. Um, this is really a last line of defense for us. If there are certain hazardous conditions that are present at any time of the day, it may lead to a proactive shutting off of power. So whereas the fast trip is sort of an automatic mechanism, this this PSPS program proactively will shut off a power to certain power lines during very hazardous conditions. And a lot of that has to do with strong winds and low humidity. Slide. So this map, and this is available online, and the website is there at the bottom of the page. And when you go to that page, you can search your address to see if you are residing in one of these potential PSPS areas. But this slide here shows roughly the potential outage areas that could be part of the PSPS program. So, one thing, I'll talk a little bit about the process here on PSPS. So the first sort of trigger for a potential PSPS event is a National Weather Service red flag warning, a fire weather watch, or high wind warning. So those are, those are communicated by the National Weather Service. And of course, oftentimes the news stations and media will cover those warnings, but that is a trigger for us to stand up our emergency response team to monitor the weather conditions. So anytime there's, for example, a red flag warning, that does not mean that the power will be shut off. There's other steps before the shutoff actually happens. And so once the red flag warning is determined, we will monitor the wind gust and relative humidity. And so currently today, and these could change in the future, but today, if the wind gusts reach around 45 miles per hour, as well as relative humidity 45% or below, that may trigger a power shutoff. So those are part of the procedures and process that we use in determining whether power should be shut off due to hazardous conditions. So a little bit more on the process. We will do our best to notify customers ahead of time. Sometimes the weather can change pretty quickly. For example, last year there were a few red flag warnings, but we did not shut off power. But one of the red flag warnings came, we did not get much advance notice for that one. But to the extent that we can get advance notice, we will communicate to our customers via email, text, and our mobile application. And then once those conditions are reached, that in the event that we do have to shut off power, we will try to communicate any updates, but typically once the restoration will not occur, restoration of power will not occur until the hazardous weather conditions have passed. And then from there, we will need to inspect our lines before fully restoring power. So once if power is taken out, it could potentially be it could be a short or long duration type of outage. We do need to wait for weather conditions to be safe, and for our crews to be able to patrol the lines and make sure that there's no damage present on the lines before we restore power. If there is damage, the outage may be prolonged until crews can safely make the repairs to our infrastructure. Okay, so we do also have a message broadcast tool to notify customers. We can provide information on how to set up for those alerts. But these are the main means of communication that we'll be using to keep customers up to date during hazardous weather conditions. Okay, the next part of this is strengthening stakeholder and community partnerships. So over the last year, and we'll continue to do this moving forward, but we have held over 100 in-person, virtual public outreach events on each of the islands that we served. We also have a wildfire safety working group that we work with stakeholders that consists of government agencies, nonprofits, as well as folks in the private sector, as a way to inform other folks of our plans, as well as to get feedback and be able to coordinate wildfire safety activities. So these are just some photos here of different engagement events that we've done. We have done a lot of community fairs to get out there to the public and to increase the public's understanding of our activities, especially to be prepared for things like PSPS events. Okay, slide. These are more pictures. And so this one example here is a project that we did with the community. So at Lehoku Elementary, we helped to fund and establish a fire break in back of their school. So you can see the before and after picture. As part of this wildfire safety strategy, we hope to be able to continue these community projects, to work with other community partners to improve their wildfire resilience. Let's see, so we are looking at ways to be able to reach community members, especially those that aren't able to attend events and meetings. We're continuing to strengthen relationships with our key partners. For example, we do hold training exercises with emergency responders on how we would operate during hazardous conditions. We continue to collaborate with different community groups around each of the islands. Okay, thanks. So again, just continuing that same theme, we've been for the past year really very focused on raising public awareness and preparing the community in case we would have to enact PSPS events. And we'll continue to work with the community as we deploy more of these projects, like strengthening infrastructure in various neighborhoods, and keeping the community informed of the different types of mitigation measures that we're deploying around the island. This is some additional information here. There's a PSPS hotline as well as you can get more information using those QR codes there, and also some general emergency preparedness guides. Okay, and that concludes my presentation. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Asano. Next call up the consumer advocate to provide a presentation.
Good evening, members of the public. Greatly appreciate you taking your time to be here tonight to share your thoughts, concerns, and questions. Good evening as well, Chair Sunshin, Commissioner Kwai, Commissioner Yost, members of the commission. My name is Michelangelo, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Division of Consumer Advocacy in the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We're also known as the Consumer Advocate. I'm joined tonight by members of our staff and members of our consultant, Jensen Hughes, a team with substantial expertise in wildfire risk mitigation. I believe we have Elizabeth Kleinsorg and Darlene Rini on. Darlene and Liz, if you want to introduce yourself. Maybe give a
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to get on camera if that's helpful.
Sure.
All right, yeah, thanks, Michael. And hello, everybody. Yes, I'm with Jensen Hughes, and we're a wildfire and fire safety engineering, fire science, and risk consulting firm. So Liz wasn't able to make it, but I'm a director in the company. I'm based in the mainland out of California, and I lead the wildfire risk mitigation service line. So we provide, again, a lot of wildfire risk consulting services on behalf of regulators, community groups, cities, counties. And so we're assisting the DCCA in this project to help provide the best science, best practices in evaluating both HECO and Kauai's WMP. So is that a good overview?
Yeah, that's great. Appreciate it, Darlene.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
Just to give a little overview of the consumer advocate's role in this process, the consumer advocate represents the interest of consumers in regulated public utility and transportation matters before the Public Utilities Commission by advocating for the provision of safe and reliable utility services delivered cost effectively, equitably, and in alignment with the state's clean energy and climate goals. I'm here this evening to listen to the community's comments and concerns and help answer questions regarding our role in the review of Hawaiian Electric Company's wildfire safety strategy. The consumer advocate will independently review Hawaiian Electric's wildfire safety strategy and evaluate its reasonableness, considering factors such as safety, reliability, cost effectiveness, and equity. As part of our analysis, we'll conduct information discovery where we request data and information to evaluate the company's strategy. Then, later in this proceeding, we'll submit the results of our analysis and recommendations to the Commission for their decision on the acceptance of the wildfire safety plan. Tonight, however, we are here to listen to the community's concerns and comments and questions regarding Hawaiian Electric's wildfire safety strategy. Any concerns and comments that you may have are an important part of our evaluation. We encourage the public to express your opinions to the Commission and our office regarding Hawaiian Electric's proposal. This will assist both the consumer advocate and the Commission in our respective work. As we move forward, please feel free to contact the consumer advocate's office at any time to share your thoughts, concerns, and questions regarding this or any other utility matter. Thank you for the opportunity to offer these comments, and our contact information and this will be provided online as well, but post office box, or mail address is Post Office Box 541, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96809. Our email is dca@dcca.hawaii.gov. Our phone is 808-586-2800. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Angelo. Next, go to if any state government agencies are on the line. Well, they're not here, but if they are online that wish to provide comment, and identify yourself. Okay, not, I'll just go down the line. Are there any statewide non-governmental or private organizations that wish to provide? I got you, Henry, as here, but then let me go just down the list first. Anyone online? Henry, you want to come up?
Aloha, commissioners, staff, other people in the room, and the public. I'm Henry Curtis, Executive Director of Life Land. The HECO Resilience Working Group met from 2019 to 2021. Life Land participated in those meetings, and when there were breakouts, we joined the civil defense and first responders in the breakout groups. HECO determined that there were 5 major threats: hurricanes, which include flood and wind; tsunamis, which include earthquakes; wildfires; physical attacks, including cyber attacks; and volcanoes. HECO concluded that hurricanes could hit a much larger geographic area. It could knock out the ports and knock out the airports and knock out highways. And therefore, that was the major focus on how to address the #1 threat. Part of it was how you recover quickly, the utility recover quickly to bring back up to full force to handle situation. Not included in that analysis were human deaths. Recovery was felt would be easier if the event was localized. The wildfire disasters were a local event that resulted in deaths, long-term health impacts, lost homes, and assets. Since then, HECO has filed 2 documents with the Commission: a natural hazards mitigation report last August and a wildfire safety strategy in January. There is absolutely no question that we must all prevent another disastrous wildfire. And the Commission has laid out a very extensive list of issues that the wildfire mitigation strategy must address. But the 2 reports really need to be considered fully together with what the Resilience Working Group was analyzing. Because the next disaster can be a hurricane, a wildfire, earthquakes, a tsunami, king tides, flooding, cyber security, or even a physical attack like happened at Metcalf in California in 2013. So while addressing the wildfire and the threat of wildfire, we must include within it a larger context to make sure that we're not hardening one part of the system when another thing will go disastrously wrong. Mahalo.
Thank you, Henry. Anyone else? Anyone from the City and County of Honolulu that wishes to provide comments? Then I guess I'll turn to anyone else, resident of Oahu, or even statewide, if you wish to make any comments at this time. Anyone else that wishes to comment? All right, so maybe we'll move to adjourn this meeting, and then, of course, as we said in the beginning, if anyone has questions of Hawaiian Electric or the Consumer Advocate, we're gonna set it up so that those online, if you guys have questions on what you heard on the presentations tonight. But following the conclusion of this public information meeting, the Commission and the Consumer Advocate, as well as other parties, I believe, Henry, you've been entered in as an intervener. We'll continue with the review of Hawaiian Electric's wildfire mitigation plan. And the process will conclude with the Commission's issuance of its written decision. I wish to point out that there are some key important dates, kind of like next steps in this proceeding. The main one coming on July 3rd, which is a target date for the closing of the current round of information requests to Hawaiian Electric by July 30th. Deadline for the consumer advocate and interveners to submit their statements of position on the wildfire mitigation plan. And then August 15, 2025, deadline for Hawaiian Electric to submit any reply statements of position if necessary. So keep that in mind. And again, you can search for this docket on the PUC's website through our CDMS system. If you want to keep track, you can also sign up for updates on on the docket as things move or as things get posted, so you get notified of that, and through an email to you if you wish to do that. And with that, I will conclude this first of two public meetings on docket number 2025-0156. Thank you all for attending and participating. And if you do have questions, hang on while we kind of shift things around to make sure that the consumer advocate and representatives from HECO can position themselves to answer any questions from the public and those online. All right. Thank you very much.